Every once in a blue moon, I truly feel like doing some fan art, and that's like super rare that I actually ever act on it. So this time I was like, you know what, let's take the things that I'm pretty interested in right now and go ahead and draw them. So hi everyone, I'm Ward and welcome to my channel Wardrawsalot, and this week we're going to be doing some fan art. Every once in a while, I'll find something new that I like, or go back to the old things that I do like, and then feel like drawing those characters, or something from the show or the movie as a result. Rarely ever, though, do I actually execute the idea of drawing them, and I don't particularly know why. I think it's just a lack of interest to do so. At some point, all I did was only fan art, right? And like, I tried doing my own characters in between, and when I was younger, I did a lot of like fan art because my own characters, you know, looked ugly. So I was like, what's the point of drawing my own characters if they look ugly? So I would draw the, you know, the fan art, so this way I could like actually fill up the sketchbook with some good pages in between, so I didn't look like complete booty in the sketchbook. But like now that I've grown older, I tend to only want to do like OCs or like my own characters, and I guess maybe it's just because I like the flavor. I like the flavor a little bit better of creating my own characters. While I do like, you know, other characters and I can appreciate them, and I actually hold a lot of admiration for a lot of characters growing up from different shows and all of that stuff, most of the time I don't ever feel the need to draw them. Is that weird? And it's because I'm like so picky when it comes to myself drawing fan art. I love seeing people do it. Like, people know how to capture these characters so well and do this wonderful fan art of like the characters that they love and they admire, and I never feel like I can do do that properly. I always feel like I don't like my own twist on it. It's so weird. I don't know why I feel like this, or I think this way a lot of the time, but if it's like a character from a specific show and I really admire the character, but it's not just the character that I admire, but the artist who created these characters. So a lot of the time I'll try to almost like copy it one-to-one of what the original artist did for the characters. It's like a weird habit of admiration and wanting to almost like attain that skill, because that's what I did when I was younger. Like, perfect example, we have Vash the Stampede here, and I love Vash to death. I will love him until my days end. This was the patient zero for my type. This is the guy right here that, like, he's based off of many of my characters, including my OC Nikki, where the personality is very love and peace and like willing to work through things but can still kick some ass. So like, he's very much my patient zero, and he's also the pretty boy, because the whole thing is that he was the pretty boy that they all kind of like went after and all this other stuff. So if you ever wanted to give it a watch, I definitely recommend the old one and the new one. They're two different stories to a degree, but I still like them. Anyway, getting back to the point, a lot of the time when I was younger, I didn't want to draw Vash, and it was because I couldn't capture it exactly how I wanted it to. But if I did try, I know that I ended up probably erasing it or something, because I don't have any like fan art of him at all. And I think it's because I was so intimidated to draw him as perfectly as possible from like the artist's point of view that like I never got the chance to actually do so. But now that I'm older, I've kind of gotten rid of like a lot of that like fear of trying to draw the character as perfectly as possible, and now just kind of drawing them in my own flavor. I also think that part of the reasoning for like, you know, wanting to draw the character exactly how the original artist did it was because my skill wasn't that good for a very long time. I would draw and I liked drawing, but I didn't learn how to properly like draw and do the proportions and color and all this stuff only until recently, like a few years ago now. I think basically since the start of this channel, especially because the whole purpose of this channel was for me to actually begin a proper art journey and learn how to draw and color and, you know, actually find myself as an artist and with, you know, a whole bunch of art techniques and all that. And I think since like the very first video I put out till now and other little fillers in between, you could definitely see a difference, and that's because I've discovered who I am as an artist and what I like to do and how I like to make my characters. So now I think that because I am more comfortable within my art style and within my own techniques, I am now able to recreate these characters much better now because I have a sense of confidence within my own art, and that kind of just makes sense. You're gonna try and imitate something exactly how it is until you find your own technique. Kind of like cooking, right? Let's say your parent teaches you a recipe, or somebody you know teaches you a recipe, and they teach you it exactly what it is, and then you copy that recipe exactly how it is so you can get it right. Maybe after a while, that recipe, you want to kind of change it. Maybe you want to add a little bit more seasoning here, or you want to add in an extra ingredient like vegetables or something to it. Then you're going to put your own flavor and your own spin on it. So it's not necessarily something that is like a rare or a weird thing. It's more so something that you use as a guide, and then from there you create your own kind of cookbook from it, right? I also think that that's just like a thing that artists do in general, is when they're younger they kind of look at art that they admire, and then they kind of want to copy that art, and then eventually over time they'll like create their own style from it. I think a lot of the time art is like a kind of conglomerate, right? A conglomerate of like styles that they put together from other artists that they, you know, really appreciate. Like at one point in, I think 2020, I had like a huge JoJo phase, right? Like ridiculous. Like all I did was JoJo fan art. All I did was draw like Jotaro and Joseph and Kakyoin and like a whole bunch of them and all that stuff. And that JoJo arc forever affected my art, because before that, like I wasn't drawing like big beefy dudes and like you know, certain kind of like features and all that stuff. And then once I went through that arc, and although I left that like huge phase, I still kind of carry some of that like art to that degree, where I do make these big buff men, or I do them in these kind of like Vogue-esque styles, because that's what I like. It really like, it influenced my art to a very heavy degree. Many different arts, or artists I should say, will have an impact on somebody, and like you could tell sometimes when it leaves a massive stain on somebody else's artwork. Some people are much better at kind of integrating it with their art and creating their own style. Some people are still trying to figure out how to kind of mesh their own self with the art that they like, or add in their own features and techniques and stuff that they kind of can make unique with their own art styles. Overall though, it's so nice seeing that so many people can take these characters and kind of put their own spin on them. And, you know, as I'm looking at myself drawing this, because I drew it, and a lot of the time I'll just draw, close the book, and I'll walk away, and I'll watch, like, this video, and I'll rewatch everything. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wow, if I would have tried, you know, doing it exactly how the original artist did it, then it wouldn't have, you know, well, it wouldn't have looked like I did it, would it? It would just look like a copy. But instead, this kind of has my own spin on it, from the way I kind of shade and the way I do my proportions and the way I kind of color in my characters and all this stuff. So I feel like it's so nice that, you know, you can take your own style and then put your own spin on it and make the character and look like them, but make it look like you did it. And I really ended up liking how Vash came out. The second, like, one where he's kind of standing straight, the face is a little deadpan. I'll admit that, it's a little deadpan, but I was just kind of wanting to focus on the outfit more than the face. The face was kind of just like the placeholder, because I did the one where he's holding his hand under the chin, which is the original $60 billion double dollar like man poster, the wanted poster. And I was like, I really want to do that, because that's like the first thing that comes to mind whenever I think of Vash. The second drawing, which you're seeing on the screen right now, is of Big Boss from Metal Gear Solid 5. I've been low-key obsessing a little bit over it because of the whole "it's been 9 years" meme floating around. For reference, this game came out 9 years ago, and the meme of the time was that Big Boss, he got into a coma for 9 years, and then like memes like swarmed around it because I was in the game. And now that it's been actually 9 years, everybody's been like redoing the meme and all this stuff, and it's like, It's actually hilarious. So I was like, damn, that was such a good game, and it's been again 9 years since I've played it. So I was like, I think it's about time for me to come in and redo this whole game because I miss it. In fact, I want to replay the entire Metal Gear series. It's honestly such a fantastic story. It's a little convoluted. A lot of the time, these great games have such convoluted stories, but it's so nice because you got to kind of put the work together to understand everything. And like that's the sucky part sometimes, that you got to put the work to do it, like to understand it. But sometimes it's like really satisfying to fill in those gaps that you were like, oh, but what happened here and what about there? And this is definitely one of those gap games, although it was made so wonderfully and everything, even though it wasn't finished. I hate you, Konami. because what's his name? Hideo Kojima could not finish the game because Konami was like, yeah, just send that shit out, bro. Send that shit out. We don't care if it's not finished. So I'm upset till this day that they never got to properly finish the game, but it's still a fantastic game for what it is. Now, that game is in a more realistic style, and I am not a realism artist. So I tried to, as best as I could, like copy Big Boss's proportions to the best of my capabilities, because again, I'm not a kind of realistic or realism artist, but I think I still did a pretty good job with it. I think that his face looks fairly proportionate. Wow. And I believe that the face scan that they use is from Kiefer Sutherland. I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly. I'm sorry. And since they used his face, it's very much like accurate to what he looks like. And I tried to my absolute hardest capture boss to like the best of my capabilities. I feel like I'm like trying to give myself excuses here, because although I think it came out pretty alright, it definitely could have come out better. I know when it comes to coloring skin, it's a lot more mixing of different hues and colors. When it's like me doing my little like characters, I can get away with it not looking like realistic skin because it's a character. But when it's a person, I have to kind of make sure I add in some kinds of red hues, blue hues, stuff like that, and kind of diffuse it throughout the skin and so it doesn't look too harsh, especially because skin isn't just like the one color. You have a bunch of undertones, and the vein color takes up a huge like factor and everything. So I tried my hardest with that. I also went in with color pencil to give the skin some texture in some areas, especially because skin isn't like perfectly smooth. If it is, you're blessed on this earth. But a lot of people have wrinkles and bumps and like a whole bunch of stuff on their skin that makes skin, skin. So I tried to imitate that as best as I could. He does already have like a lot of scarring, and he's a little withered, and he's older because of just time. But not only time, he's done a lot of like crazy missions and stuff, and like usually whenever a lot of crazy stuff happens in your life, it ages you like incredibly quickly. Although he's still a cutie. He's still a cutie. So it's so crazy. Sometimes I see the duality of man, like, oh, Snake is cute, but then I look at Vash, I'm like, oh, he's cute too. So it's like the duality. But I really do think that he came out fairly well, especially because I don't do any of the realism stuff. But the color pencils, I feel like, really took it up a notch. The texture, something about texture with color pencils when you're coloring in skin really creates just like this incredible look to it, and I feel like it really like brings it to a level that surpasses what you wanted with just markers. I like using markers on their own, definitely, and I can get a good amount of a look with it, but there's something with color pencils that like creates this almost third dimension with it, and I think that's why so many people use color pencils when they do realism art. It's because something about the blending or the technique or the tool that just creates this otherworldly look to it, to where it almost can like pop out at you. And it's just so interesting how so many different mediums can create so many different looks. And I know a lot of people can do realism with markers, and to a degree I can too, to like a certain degree. But there's something when you add in other like medias that truly make a difference. I know some mediums don't need other ones to kind of accompany it when it comes to that, like if you're doing like oil paint and you know your technique really well, we've seen like the big painters throughout time and how they use that oil paint, and it looks like, oh man, it looks incredible every time because they know how to blend and they know their lighting and they know how it works and all that stuff. But it's like, you know, the tools are 50% and then the artist is 50%. So if the artist doesn't know what to do and they have these incredible tools, then it's not going to mean nothing. And vice versa, if you're an incredible artist but you don't have any useful tools, or they're like, you know, shitty like crayons or something, your skill can only go so far because, you know, your tools are kind of stunting your process. So it's all kind of like, you know, here and there. It's tools, it's the artist, it's everything in between. In my case, I do have some good tools here and I do have some kind of, I guess, artistic skill. So I'm instead of like 50-50, I'm like maybe like 35-35. So I got a good amount there. I do really like how this hand came out, I'll tell you that. I think the hand came out like pretty cool. I showed it to like my brothers once in a while. I'll show it to some family members, my art, and he was like, the way the hand is holding the cassette tape, it looks like it's actually jumping out of the page. So I thought that that was something really cool. I really like how the fan art came out in general though, and I honestly had some fun, and I should do it more often. I always say this, but I never do. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye.